Hello and welcome to an open source live code hangout. Today we'll be working on the Western Front website and picking a sort of low-hanging fruit. The task is about some warnings we're getting in the console. We've recently upgraded to Wagtail 4 and Django 4, and there are some deprecation warnings. And we're just going to go through these and try to resolve as many of them as we can in the next hour or so. So without further ado, let's hop over to the code. And here you can see when I run the server, I get a lot of these deprecation warnings. So we're going to go through them one at a time, starting with this most prominent one. I think it should just be /admin. So let's see, we've got a branch created. And for those of you new to this channel or the Wagtail and Django ecosystem, Wagtail is a content management system for the Django web framework. So Django allows you to create full stack web applications using Python, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And Wagtail is essentially very much like WordPress, a content management system, but very flexibly designed. And really strong emphasis on usability and user experience. So it looks like Wagtail base URL admin should work here. Let's go ahead and get these running side by side. Actually, typically have code closer to my eyes a bit. And show you what the Wagtail admin interface looks like. It's very similar again to like WordPress. It's got a sidebar menu. It's blazingly bright. Gotta work on my color balance. It's mobile friendly, and whereas WordPress is very heavily blog focused, with more recent efforts to turn it into a general purpose CMS. Wagtail has started from the ground up as being a general purpose CMS where you define your own types of pages, and pages are a hierarchy and could have subpages, which can also have subpages and particular types of content. And in general, the Django web framework is broadly speaking a web application framework that defines database tables, and you interact with those and render the content via views that prepare HTML templates. So we're kind of going back to the basics, building on a Django project and getting this nice content management user experience. Okay, so that was one issue resolved. We set the Wagtail admin URL, make sure we're in there. I always just cancel that. I want to manually stage changes. There we go. All right, so let's go through this issue. Deprecation warnings, top to bottom. Admin edit handlers stream field panel. I think this is going to be a repeat. So anytime we're finding the stream field panel, we're going to replace that. Stream field is one of the significant features of the Wagtail development framework. It's basically a JSON field. It's a field that is a list of content, of structured content, but you can intermix these, what they call blocks, similar to the WordPress Gutenberg block editor. And the blocks can be simple, rendering a paragraph or some rich text, all the way to multimedia embeds, complex field types with subfields, or relationships with entity selection. It's very flexible. This needs just to be replaced with the field panel. All right, I think we're going to see this a lot, where I'm defining the stream field panel on the body. I can just use the regular field panel for the body, and then we'll remove these imports. And what Wagtail does, similar to Django, that when you define a content type, it will automatically render an editing form for you and figure out the best type of editing widget to use for those particular forms. The stream field, being more complicated, had initially its own class or widget kind of to render it, but now they've folded everything into this general purpose field panel, which takes a particular field and decides what type of widget or panel to use to render that. Some of them are even allowing you to render related entities in line as if it was part of this parent entity. It's really powerful, the Wagtail CMS. We're just going to clean up all these imports and all the places where we've used stream field panel. See if things still run. It should work. These are deprecation warnings, so it's giving us the opportunity to clean these up before the release. Looks good. All right, so we're still running. Let's let me just kill this server real quick and run it again, see if we're getting an error. Okay. That makes sense. So I was a little bit hasty and didn't check the squiggles. There might be a simple solution for this. If I hit control period. Nope. I forget where this is. Search for a field panel. Find the import here. Right here. Wagtail admin edit panel. Okay, yes. Wagtail admin. So we're in the Wagtail admin interface, and it generates forms. There we go. So there might be a couple more of those. Let's find out. Field panel's not defined. Yes. This is going all the way into the core, so all right, we're back up and running. We've just only a few more of these deprecation warnings. Let's just clear out the console and see approximately how many of those remain. It's not altogether bad. Some of these are Wagtail, some of these are Django. And that's pretty remarkable that it just works. I'm pretty sure it just works. I don't have any other more refined tests to run on the Wagtail admin. We're kind of relying on their internal testing. So let's start at the top. Run server removed in Django. Use the IL localization setting. Let's search for this. And it's going to default to true, so we no longer need that. It's going to localize all. I looked this one up. We'll localize all user-facing text by default. In version 4, it sets the default value to true, which ours was already true anyway. And by 5, they'll remove it. These deprecation warnings give us a little bit of advance notice, actually quite a lot of advance notice, because Django 4 just came out, and Django 5 is probably, I'm not sure what the release cadence is. There may not be a concrete time for that. Like Ubuntu has a pretty stable release cadence. Yeah, I'm not sure. But anyway, there's plenty of time, I believe, to do this work. So we've got that. We'll run it again. Remove it in. Whoa, okay, let's scroll up. Stream field must explicitly set use JSON field argument. Close out these files. Got so many of them. I'll commit that. What was it again? L10N. Can you use L10N? Whoa. Models base. So I've got to basically find all of the stream fields definitions in my models. And not in migration. So we're going to exclude. So that would be all of the apps. Oh, look around my microphone here. It's a bit tricky. So no migration files. So we got a model. The body of stream field must explicitly set. I'll look this one up. As I mentioned at the beginning of this session, the stream field is this composite field that lets you define a stream or like a list of different types of blocks or like dynamic like components, basically web components in a way. Not technically, but related. And it's, I think, stored in the database as JSON. So, or this is letting us opt into that. Yeah, as a JSON field. Central type line. Text field instead. Must be set to true or false. Well, on this, I think JSON field will give us richer semantics in Django 4. And text field is basically a blob of text that is sort of what you would call like serialized and deserialized into well, it's all going to be into Python objects or Python list. Let's go ahead and use JSON field on all of these. Why not? So I believe that's a top level attribute. No. Okay, how does this work? First argument is actually the list of field types. So here we have a community page. You'll see this pattern repeated in our project. Everything inherits from the Wagtail page, which is essentially a tree, a hierarchy with one root page and then sub pages that can have sub pages or children, all the way to the leaf nodes. So our community page is a page that we display some community organizations, and essentially it's a content type that the data gets stored in the database. So all of these are content types. They're called models in Django, where we interact with the database, and all the database fields are represented as class attributes, class members. We have a body field that's stored in the database, and it's a stream field, meaning it can consist of a number of subfields. And these fields are essentially components like a heading, rich text, image, cards, like you could think of those as a web component card, like a Bootstrap card. and spacer, which is a custom component we made to let the editor have some control over spacing on the page when constructing a grid. And so essentially these are components that all live in a text or JSON field. The first argument to the stream field is this list of the types of blocks. Some stream fields you want some types of blocks, others may have a more refined listing. Don't have a particular example here. These are pretty generic. These rich text blocks and heading image chooser, they're used throughout our site. But what we're going to tell stream field now is first that it was allowed to be null, so you could leave it the body empty. And we're doing that for the purpose of allowing imports. I'm not exactly sure, but anyway, this new attribute is telling it to store the data in JSON as opposed to plain text, which may be more efficient. I don't really have a strong opinion, so I'm just going to go with JSON. Here I've defined a stream field block, but that's not where we're actually using it. And essentially stream field blocks are, well, this is actually the importer where I'm parsing content coming from our previous content management system, Drupal, and going through every element in the body of an article, magazine article, which is a big HTML blob. And I'm parsing those elements, checking the type, and mapping those into our fields. That's not in the scope of this session, but we're seeing that here. Null is true, blank is true. Let's store it as JSON, true. Here we've got another stream field defined. Null is true, blank is true, JSON is true. I'll just be consistent here, so I don't need to keep that one open. But the what are we done with it? Yeah, stream field. I'm gonna go through these again real quick, but and I'm not sure why these are turning red, just to indicate that there's changes. Here's the one I was going to use this. Just going in the, for consistency, I'll define it as after the null. Donation, stream field. Anywhere I see this stream field, just going to make the same change. Teaser. And I'll go through these one extra time. Stream field, null, blank. Use JSON. Body stream field. Oh, wait a minute. That's the rich text. Body stream field. That could be, no problem. Stream field, find, that one's already been taken care of. Body, stream field, use JSON, that's already been taken care of. Body, stream field, use JSON. Okay, other files, models, suggested donates, everybody's got it. All right, I'm just gonna go through top to bottom one more time. Actually, now it's gonna want me to migrate those in. I'm gonna have to migrate those in so it can change the field type. And did introduce a syntax error. Well, I didn't do this repeatedly. Yeah, I did. That's perhaps why they're turning red. Not quite paying attention. Not paying attention to what I'm doing. Just copying and pasting, it's easy to do. Copy and paste errors. I was wondering why those tabs were turning red. It should have. It triggered some kind of recognition that I was doing something wrong. That's handy. All right, looks like we're good. We've got everybody changed. Several files changed. Just gonna go through these search results one more time. There's 8. And I'm gonna minimize the tab one, so I've checked it out. Stream field, null, true, and importing. The imports are fine, so I don't need to look at the import field. That's a content migration. Suggested donation amount, stream field, JSON is true, stream field, JSON is true, no syntax errors, JSON is true. Keeping an eye on chat here. Last time I was so focused on coding and figuring stuff out, I completely neglected the chat, so I've got it right in my peripheral vision. Shouldn't be a problem this time. Stream field, use JSON field. It's true. Yeah. Why does this consider other files anyway? Yeah. And brilliant. Now I believe I'm going to have to make a migration for this. I don't think the default is to use a JSON field. I believe SQLite has a JSON field. This might push me into Postgres territory. See what Django maybe abstracts that for me. I don't want to add another package. All right, as long as it doesn't have any problem. Let's see. Yeah, looks good. Cool. Looks good. Like that the framework can do stuff for you. And wow, everything is going and folding into this field panel. This is really cool. They had to define some of these more bespoke panels because of the complexity of certain things like the stream field or media. But now that's going away. The field panel became more powerful with Wagtail 4. Wagtail, let's see here. I don't want to, oh, yep, there it is up here. Field panel, of course, that was already imported there. Field panel, and then remove that. Image chooser, and then a couple of, oh, that's Wagtail. Yeah, image chooser panel, image chooser panel, image chooser panel. So just 3 of those. What? Did I forget to save something? Magazine models, 59. Store models. Wagtail admin panels. Huh. All right, well, that's an internal. Warning. And again, I didn't see it in any other place. excluding migrations. So yeah, there we are. We'll just switch. I'm going to, oh, hey there, Yaduanshi. Welcome to the Hangout. How are you doing today? Yeah, I'm going to, on the topic of chat, I'm going to see about streaming on YouTube and Twitch at the same time and maybe blending those two, having a common chat. For some reason, the Twitch has seemed to be more active, more people wanting to chat on that platform. I do like having conversations and discussions, and I'll try to integrate the chat on the screen so that everybody can see everybody else's messages. Even if you're on YouTube, you can see the people on Twitch. I haven't gotten into that recently, but looking into it. So basically, change image chooser panel to field panel. It would be nice if the chat would make a little like a sound so I would hear that I got a message, because I don't always see out of the corner of my eye. All right, so what do we have? One more deprecation warning aside from that internal one. REST framework. Yeah. That's out of our control there. Let's see if there's any updates. Yaduwanshi, are you doing any web development? Interested in any of these types of open source projects? There's a couple of the projects that I'm working on, and if you're wanting to contribute, right now is a great time to do that. It's as you might know, Hacktoberfest is running, and they're encouraging and rewarding contributions to open source projects. I think you can get like a T-shirt or other prizes for contributing. This is quite a lot of updates. I'm not sure if I should include that in this pull request. I'm going to go for it. Maybe that REST one will have an update. Django REST Framework 3.14, and maybe that'll get rid of the deprecation warning. And it's good to keep, right now we're in beta, so it's good to keep all of our dependencies fresh. If I run the server, let's see if that deprecation warning has gone away. Wow. Clean database. I mean, clean console, and then database is going to be up to date. Some Wagtail core migration to run. All right, let's run it one more time and take a look. Oops, not that one. All right, doesn't hurt. Run server. Wow, no issues. Very good. All right, so we're off to the races. And everything should basically look the same with Wagtail. It got a major like remake though. The user interface has gotten significant changes. And like I say, that Wagtail is focused only here on the admin section. It lets you define your content types and gives you a really easy way of creating new content by automatically generating forms and giving you all these rich widgets. So for example, I go to magazine, there we are. If I go to issues, Wagtail generates all of the tables and stuff. This thing's been kind of a pain for a while. It overlaps that, but you know, you can define these buttons. You can change those if you want a different action, like this add article button. Then you have the rich text widget. You add the page title in this case, teaser, and that shouldn't be displaying. But this is our stream field where I mentioned earlier. You have a series of blocks that have different types of interfaces, and even in the rich text, you can insert blocks. That's crazy! Wow, this is new. They're really modeling this after the WordPress Gutenberg editor, I think. It's a bit sort of heavy, but they've also been helping give indicators of what is type, what type of block, and when you hover over it with your mouse, at least, it shows you where which fields are related to the block you're editing. This is a custom block that we created. It lets the editor specify an HTML header while controlling the text, and even adding a target so that you could link directly to it via the anchor and override the color. So the editor can use color to emphasize certain headers. Anyway, that's the Wagtail editing interface. It's pretty powerful. Let's go ahead and, whoops, what did we forget here? Oh yeah, update dependencies. Publish this branch. That's pretty good. 30 minutes. I didn't really think of any other tasks to take. 449. Close number 449. Okay. Django. Update dependencies. There we go. When I open this pull request, VS Code will allow me to manage it right here. Integrated in the editor, it shows all the commits. Also, you can see that Git, since I use this keyword, GitHub, sorry, will link my pull request number 452 to this issue number 449. So that when I close and merge this pull request, this issue is also going to be closed. Yes, very handy. And we will delete the branch. Locally and remote. Yep. Good to go. And now this will automatically be deployed. And then I need to, let's see, pull these changes down. Now I'm back on the main branch. I just need to sync those changes. Run server. Very cool. Well, I can take a quick look at the remaining issues. I think there might be some things I'll work on off stream. I have to work on some content migrations essentially, and it's a bit of a slog. I'm actually kind of stalled on that. Let me see. Oh yeah, this is actually a feature. I can do this now. Oh cool. Yeah, this will take probably about a half hour. Let me take a quick break, get some tea. I've got some water, and we'll start in on one more feature, and should be half hour to an hour, depending on any unforeseeables. But it's a very small feature request. I'm pretty sure it should be about a half hour of code. I'll be right back. Thanks for sticking around. Okay, thanks for your patience. And we're going to start in on this second pull request here, second feature. So as a point of reference, I'll go here to our local project. I don't have a lot of data populated, but we have essentially a home page. Everything in Wagtail is pretty much a page. Django is a general purpose content management system or web development framework, where again we define models that interact allow us to interact with database tables and fields. Those models can be anything. Generally speaking, though, it's kind of content or web application data. Wagtail puts the emphasis on content management in the spirit of WordPress and Drupal and other CMSs. Wagtail being built on Django doesn't necessarily, it extends Django, so everything in Django is going to be available. Wagtail adds this bunch of things, and one is called pages. And page is a generic content type. It's again hierarchical. You start with a root page, and it has a child page. And if I go again to the Wagtail admin, by default, it gives you this page browser. Here's our root page. It has several children, and those children can have children, So this is an example of the Wagtail page model in action. I'm also blending in some general Drupal content. I believe this Django, maybe, I'm not sure. This is another Wagtail page. I can tell because it's got a stream field here. And what we're going to be doing is working with these events, which are basically calendar events. Some event title, like a celebration or a meeting. And a teaser would be what we'll display in confined spaces, like the homepage, which we're going to be coming to in just a moment. And the body is a stream field, as we've been working with several widgets. And since it's a date, it has a date chooser, this is all powered by Wagtail. Start and end dates, because the events can span multiple days or hours. And the events are typically in a time zone. Western Friend is based in the Pacific United States, so we're defaulting there. And there may be a registration link or further details website that we want to link. So these are called events. And what we want to do is allow the editor to feature certain events, upcoming events, on what's called the home page. So if we go here, it's this welcome page. There's only ever one instance of the welcome page, and it has various content, such as a title and an intro text, and some featured events. So Wagtail also includes a publication workflow where you can draft things, you can have a moderation, or if you have the right privileges, you can publish and unpublish directly, and then view live. So there's my intro text and title. And as you'll notice, there's what's called a magazine issue, and the issue is called test. This is my local development environment. It's not very fully fledged right now. When I edit the page, there's nothing here about a magazine issue. But what we do have is the ability to choose an event. So let's say new event. I should have just created one of these. New event. Teaser text. This is all part of testing it anyway. Welcome to the new event. You've got to at least have a start date. So we'll just put that there somewhere in the future, and a time zone. We'll publish that. So by default, the event will get its own kind of page on the site, and visitors can go directly to that link or otherwise navigate an events calendar. We don't have that yet, but we do have a front page, and we want to give the actually we want to feature events. Currently, you can choose an event. Here's the new event now. When I publish that and view live, we'll see, whoa, there's our featured events section that appeared now that we've manually featured one. This featured events feature was added more than a year ago. I'm not sure exactly. It's been a while. And we've since discussed that it would be easier to automatically feature some number of upcoming events that have a particular flag that says featured event, rather than having the editor go in and edit the page and select the events and remove the old ones. So that's what I'm going to work on now. Call it automatic. There's some semantics here. This is a manual process in my eyes where you have to go in and feature and unfeature events. It's a curated process. The other one is the way we'd like it to work is when you add an event, there'll be a checkbox somewhere here maybe that it says is featured or featured on homepage, something like that. And all you have to do is publish one and it'll automatically appear. So that is actually not too big of a change. Where we'll start, we'll look at our home page model, and then we will look at the event model, and then we will come back to the home page model. So let me just open up both of those events. Sometimes I have just troubles reading. So our home page model has a field. Here's our home page. Here's our home page model. It has several fields, an intro text, and a title. It has this inline panel, which allows us to display another field or entity inline as if it were part of the home page. But in reality, it's related content joined by foreign key. So our inline panel, called featured events, I think that's the key right here, that links to the home page via the related name. We have this homepage featured events orderable, which is coming from the Wagtail core. And what that allows us to do is select related entities from a main entity like the home page to select multiple events and then change the order that they display, put one in front of the other manually. It's pretty useful. But in any case, I'm explaining this all and it's going to go away here. But in any, generally speaking, many-to-many relationships, you'll have like a join table that has references to both of the tables, the entities it's joining between. So we can only really have one home page. There's a constraint in our system that says we can only have one home page right here. But this is just generally how you have how foreign keys work. And this is a Wagtail specific one called parental key, which means that this featured event is a child of the home page in the page hierarchy. And that there's a foreign key, which just is a relationship to an event. And anytime you delete the event, this or the home page, these home page featured events will also be deleted. Panels tells Wagtail which fields we want to render. And in this case, a page chooser panel allows us to choose a related entity from of a particular type. Otherwise, it would allow us to pick any page. We want just to feature events here. Suffice it to say, that's how it works, and this is going away now. But we'll probably come back. We'll revisit these orderables in another session. So here we got the homepage content panels. Now we're just going to have an intro text. That's all you can edit. And it's a field panel. It renders the correct widget for a rich text field, which allows you to do formatting and insert media and things like that. And as I mentioned, the Wagtail page model is a hierarchy. So the home page being the root, it can have any of these subpages. Just while we're here, I'm kind of demonstrating how this is organized. So essentially, there's many types of content on our site, and we want to kind of we want to enforce a particular organization of the content. For example, in our magazine, we'll have an index page that lists magazine issues, and each issue can list a number of magazine articles. But from the home page, we can only add the magazine index page, and then from the magazine index page, we can only add magazine issues as children. And from the magazine issue, we can only add magazine articles as children. It's just a way to have a real clean content organization. It also reflects in the URL hierarchy. So that's what this is doing, the subpage types property of the page model. Max count just says we can only have this many instances of this particular type. Get context is coming from Django. We'll be revisiting this in a moment. What I've got here is where the content is what gets rendered to the Django template. It's the data, and the template is the placeholder for the data. We're adding a context variable called the current issue, which just grabs the latest issue. And that's what allowed us, as you recall, to display an issue, the test issue, here. It's kind of bland. There should be an image, and it should be a little richer, but nonetheless, that's a link to the latest issue. We're going to add a new context variable in just a moment. The featured events. And that'll be a similar query. We'll select a number of them. And we might even expose that number as a variable that the editor controls. They can select up to, for example, 5 featured events. I'm going to keep it fairly simple, but here we go. So I've changed the homepage model. I've removed this join table down here, and I've removed this field. So now I'll need to migrate the database. Yes, so we deleted a model. The inline panel wasn't really a change to the homepage model. It's just a field that Wagtail was rendering to give us an editing interface that was more seamless. What we've really done is just deleted a model in the corresponding data there. So we'll just run that and get rid of those. Now, nothing has really changed except, well, when I edit this page, now we only see the intro text. And again, this is rich text here, so I can add a new line and put some kind of bulleted list in there and publish that. Notice that it saved, that warned me that the draft has not been saved. It's pretty user friendly. So here we go. I edited some custom rich text on the home page, and we're going to now over here to the events model. We're going to add a field such as is featured. It'll be a Boolean field, and it can probably just come over here. Yeah. And defaulted false. So it's an opt-in. And then what we'll do is just add another field panel here. And it can display in any order. This allows me to control. Right. Actually, the help text comes from here. I'm going to add just a little bit of help text to this. Maybe not. How do you do that? Let's see. Put my cursor here. Should just be one of those things I can add right here. Dang it. End, not delete. Now we're going to migrate that in. So this is going to give us a little bit of ergonomics. So we'll say if event is featured. Homepage featured event. If event is featured, semantic. So now we're going to go to, again, the home page context function. We're going to add a variable. And first number. Let's try 5. Just a quick sketch from that's close, but not quite. It looks like these can be cleaned up. Wow. Right, because got rid of that model. That join model, and then don't need the chooser or the inline panel. I should have cleaned those up in the previous. Just do that. Clean these up real quick. Except don't need this. All right, so now we're gonna add that and that. Let's see if this works. So we've got context, event objects all. Select the first 5. I hope Django's. I hope that's a performant way of doing it. Start time. Quite long, so I'm going to have to ignore the lint rule here. But let's see if we get something now. In order to display something, we're going to edit the template. Homepage template here, similar to this, if such and such. Actually, I have an extra div here. No. Let's see, this should be inside here then. What's going on here? Run the server. Yeah, and start time. So let's look at this model again. Model for the events. Events, models, start date. Start date. It's like a date time. And we went that reverse order. We went the no. We went them in order, but upcoming. Well, let's just get this in real quick. And haven't used it yet. It's essentially this, if and if. So it's featured events count, right? Yes, now I'll go back to the admin area and feature the event. That's what I'm forgetting. One thing at a time. So our featured event is featured, should then show up on the home page. Let's just try this. Event objects all. I guess since it's not a property of the page anymore, it's just coming from the context. Yeah, there we are. That was the main change. Since I removed it from the page model, sort of, there was this reverse lookup field called featured events on the model. Then it wasn't available as a property there, but it was in the page context just as featured events. There we go, new event. All right, now we're going to refine this a bit and add two of these. You can see the basic way it renders. It adds the featured event section. Each event is in a Bootstrap card. It's got a title with a link, the date, time and time zone, and the teaser text. When you click, it goes to the full event page. All right, we want to do two things now. Add a couple of events so I can double check that the ordering is correct, that they're in sequential order, and then make sure that only future events display. So we're going to add two more events. One in the past, one maybe after this event. Okay, so we'll go back to the Wagtail events section, past event is featured, and set the date sometime in the past. Oh, wait a minute. Did you see that? It was showing is featured twice. I must have copied it and pasted it instead of cut and paste. Is featured, Oops. Easy mistake. Okay, so we're looking good. And one in the future new event. So it's even future. So let's put it next month. In the year 2000. All right, so now if we go to our homepage, yeah, we got the past event, new event, and future event. They're showing in chronological order. Snoop Dogg will say. Chronological. Okay, so the filter would be greater than now. There's got to be just an answer for that. All right. Django. Greater than now. I don't need a time delta. I like this. Chaining these. Where am I? On event. That's not what I wanted, where I wanted to be. There we go. This is pretty nice that you can do that. Training these and they should still work. Checking the chat. Put my eyes on the chat. Okay. Okay, filter. Instead of all, we'll run filter. And start date. Greater than or equal to now. In the future. And then black does our auto formatting. I don't fight the formatter anymore. Pyland should be chill and respect the black formatting. In my opinion. Maybe that was before we added black. I don't know. And the past event should go. Bye-bye. Looks good. And I think these are sort of self-explanatory now. And we'll leave it at 3. I'll present the option of this being configurable, number of displayed events, 3, 5. there should be an upper limit. And I mean, there's plenty of room, so wouldn't hurt. All right, sounds good. So anyway, I think that's about it, really. Let's go ahead and commit these, and we will wrap things up. Excellent. And it's a little bit more automated. Not fully. I mean, there's a box you check when you're adding the event, so you do have the ability to curate it. But the wiring, getting on the homepage, yeah, it's automated. So it's semantic, slight difference. It doesn't matter what we call it, just that it's ready for review. Ready for review. I marked it as draft, and we had a basic discussion about the way it should work. So this, in about 20 minutes, I'm going to have a call with the editor, and we'll possibly merge this as it is or add a small adjustment or two. We'll see how that call goes. All right, cool. Let's do a quick recap, though. And what I'll do is essentially, for this recap, keep it brief. Say where we are, what we're working on, what we did. Whoops, closed. Didn't I close something? Deprecation warnings. Why is that coming first? Strange. And we'll give a quick preview of this. This is the interesting one, and how it works on the home page. Before we delve into the code there. Okay, excellent. And I think the code review on GitHub should be okay in this case. Although that does bring up the problem. No, it's dark. Okay, ready? Hello, and welcome to this recap of today's open source live code hangout. Today, we've been working on the Western Friend website on a couple of issues. Go ahead and review these issues and the code involved in resolving them. The first one is we recently upgraded Wagtail and Django to their 4.x series. These are new releases from both projects. Wagtail, I think, is mirroring the Django release in that sense. And after upgrading, there were several deprecation warnings in the terminal saying that in Django 5 or Wagtail 5, we're removing these features. So here's some time you have to resolve them. They looked like that, not very entertaining, but what we did today is just kind of go through each of these and figure out what it was needed to fix it. They were pretty straightforward. Take a quick look at the code here. Most of these are just the same thing over and over, so I'll try to skip over the things that are the same. Basically, we altered a bunch of fields, and in order to do those alterations in the database, we needed to generate some migrations. So all these migrations are relating to a Wagtail field data type called stream field, which is essentially a JSON field that lets you store semi-structured content. These can be various types of blocks, and you can assemble a page with these blocks, like headers and headings and target, like with various attributes like a target. And so this migration is basically altering this stream field to add some behaviors. We'll look at the actual field definition. Typically, we don't have to worry about the migration code that's automatically generated. So we basically went through all of our models, and in the case where we had a stream field, we have to explicitly tell it whether or not to store the stream field data as JSON. Previously, it was storing it as kind of a big text blob that would get deserialized or somehow parsed into Python list. And now the JSON gives the ability to have some improved ergonomics when you're querying within a stream field. So I opted in to use the JSON representation. However, on the local development, we're using SQLite, which doesn't have this JSON field. But fortunately, Django gives us the abstraction, or Wagtail somewhere in there, that it just worked. So I'm glad for that. Didn't have to start up a Postgres container in my local development environment. And the other big change, these are just going to be repeated, is Wagtail is auto-generating editing forms. It's a content management system. You define your content types. Typically, they are defined as Wagtail pages. Pages are a hierarchical data model where you have a root page, and that page can have children, and those children can have children. Although you can also define Django content types, which are just any arbitrary database table and fields. And Wagtail handles the magic of generating an editing interface that the content managers can use. It looks something like this, where you have fields and those fields have representations. We'll get into this particular content type in just a moment. But in any case, for some of these more complicated fields, prior to Wagtail 4, there were some specific field types, such as the stream field type, because of the nature of stream field being like a nested list of JSON, essentially. Now, they wanted special handling, but Wagtail 4 now has rolled these features into the regular field panel, which means our code base is simpler, the developer experience is simpler. Everything is basically a field. Wagtail figures out how that field should be rendered without really the developer having to think much about that. So that's a nice improvement. So this is one model that we made those changes to. Django 5 will be deprecating this, use L10N or localization setting, and Django 4 is defaulting this value to true. So since the default is currently true, meaning that Django will automatically localize any content that's rendered into the template, we can just remove this setting and set ourselves up for Django 5, which is, I don't know when that'll be released, but in any case, we're ready for it, at least at this stage of deprecation. And the other Wagtail sort of notification or note in our terminal was that we needed to define this variable, which is basically where you access the Wagtail admin screen. It's a bit bright there. I'll just do it half size. So we did that, and that will help for some other features, such as email notifications. Great, that was done. Again, that's a migration. I'm going to try to go through these a little bit fast. This is just switching stream field to field panel, cleaning up imports, switching stream field to field panel. That was good. Another migration. Kind of skim through these, setting the JSON field, switching the stream field to field panel. Migration. I should have minimized the migrations before we did the review. These are formatting changes from our code formatter. Migration. Image chooser. So this is another example of a complex block type for multimedia handling that historically needed its own class and block. Now that's been rolled into the field panel. So the field panel is getting more robust. We also have a stream field here, so we're making the same changes relating to that. This is one of our more complicated models in the magazine section of the website. And this code, as you can see, is all open on GitHub. We are an online magazine publication and community platform. So if you, with e-commerce and a bookstore. So if you have any of those type of features and soliciting donations, feel free to check out our code and see if it suits your needs. I'm going to skip through these. Streamfield, field panel. Then I did run an update on all our dependencies just because we're still in sort of a really beta mode. So I'm just keeping everything up to date. I think that's it. So great. 1,000 lines changed mainly because of the poetry lock. There was several updates that ran, but got rid of all of the deprecation warnings from Wagtail and a couple that were in Django that I didn't originally capture in the related issue. So since this didn't need any kind of peer review so much, I'm the only developer here. I just went ahead and merged this one. Now let's take a look at this latest feature. I'm going to do this so it's not quite so blazingly bright. The website, as I mentioned, has several features. It's a community portal, and one of the features is to display events, community events like meetings or celebrations. And not quite a calendar, but it's sort of like an events list. And those events have some attributes. An event title, which is everything in Wagtail, as I mentioned, is a page. And whether or not that event is featured. And I'll just show you what we ended up with. We previously had to manually specify on the home page which events to feature. There's a little section there, and you could display up to like 3 events. But now the editor would, in that case, create an event, then visit the home page, then edit the home page, then remove an event that was featured if there were already full, like 3 previously selected events, and then add a new one. So there's a bit of manual process there. Now the only step that's needed is to check a box. So it's still a little bit manual. That means that the editor can choose which ones should be featured, and they will automatically appear on the home page. So we'll look at the implementation here. In a moment, I'll just mention this is a plain text field, and Wagtail chooses the right widget here. This is a stream field. It's a composite of multiple, potentially complex fields, including multimedia. I mean, it's pretty powerful with like modal choosers and upload. It's very nice. All of this is just done with Wagtail. I define like 1 line of code, more or less, in the stream field body. We get date choosers with, I mean, it's just such a great content manager. I can't recommend it more. Really, if you're starting out a new project that has a need for a content management system, check out Wagtail. Compare it with the established WordPress and other content management systems. But I believe not only is the user experience it's exceeding, I believe, even WordPress now, and the developer experience is top notch, especially being built on Django. So let's just take a quick look at the home page. As I've created several events, as you can see here in the events listing, created 3 events, one in the past. Today is October 5th, 2022. One in the future, and one in the future-ish. It's not so far away, but still. So I can say, you can see the Wagtail actually admin interface also generates all of this. I just tell it what content to render and then how, which fields to generate filters on. All of this is done by Wagtail. Really cool. But I don't want to go too far into the details of Wagtail during this live stream summary. So when we go to, and this is the admin homepage from earlier, when we go to the front page, now we see the front page looks like this. I can edit the title and add some rich text. And you can see it's really taking notes from the Gutenberg text editor, WordPress Gutenberg. You can add rich multimedia, upload things, all within this block-based editing interface. When I view the live homepage, you'll notice there are no events here. It's just a welcome and an intro. So the page title and the intro text. When I view it live, we have the page title and the intro text. And a current issue, which is not really doing it justice. This will have an issue cover photo and some other information, but below that is the featured events section that's displaying a number of featured events. Notice that these are in the future, and they were both, when I added them, I toggled that featured event checkbox. Let's quickly look at the code for this. It's pretty straightforward though. So after some discussion, we decided to make the featured events more user-friendly from the editor, the content management perspective, by sort of automating most of the wiring to the front page and just adding a checkbox. So didn't take many lines of code, about 20 minutes of coding, I think. So again, we've got a migration here where I've altered I've added a field to the event model, and that looks like this. Here's the model for the event. I've added this isFeatured field, which is a Boolean. It defaults to false, so it's true or false with a default value. That means you have to opt in to the events being featured. Added a little bit of help text here. I believe that help text is on the events. Add event. It's, yeah, gonna just give you an indication what this means. And we're using our famous field panel and it just knows that it's a Boolean field, so it needs to render a checkbox. All that's handled by Wagtail for us. Then we migrated the home page model, which is a instance in a row in a table in our database. This was a little bit more complex of a change, but basically we got to remove a bunch of things that were no longer needed. First thing, I had this join table where anytime you have a many-to-many relationship in a relational database system, you'll typically define those relationships by adding an intermediary table that takes the ID of each of the related entities and stores them to make that connection, as opposed to just having a foreign key field on one entity or the other, which would be like a 1-to-1 or many-to-1. And in the case, homepage featured event used to be an orderable, where when you were editing the homepage, you would be able to manually select those events and then change the order of them. It's a pretty nice feature of Wagtail when you need it. We are using it elsewhere in the project, but we no longer needed it here, so I removed that table. And an inline panel means that you can tell Wagtail when you're editing a particular entity or page, in this case, to display related entities as if they were kind of part of this entity. So when we're editing a homepage, you would see inline this featured events orderable, which could be up to I think just any arbitrary number of events. We didn't have a limit, it looks like. So it's like a chooser, you add 0 or more. We removed that though, because we're making the user editing experience simpler. And the import here, I had imported the date time and the event model. And apparently the page model, I'm not sure why. But so this is going into the Django territory. When your Wagtail pages are essentially Django content. So and this is actually pretty scattered. In the homepage model, we have this getContext function that gets called when the homepage is rendering. What that does is prepares data to be rendered into the template. And we'll get the default context based on the request in the super class, which is the page model. And we're going to add a couple of variables to that. Previously, we had this variable here to add the current issue, which just grabs the one of the magazine issues that's been published, most recently published. Grabs the first one of those. For the featured events, we basically did a very similar thing. Event objects, I should probably make sure that they've been published. The editor may want to draft them. I just realized that. That's what this live does. Make sure that it is published. Wagtail adds this publication workflow that isn't built into Django by default. So I'll probably change this to objects live, and I'll want to filter those to where the start date is greater than or equal to now, basically there, today or later. And order those by the start date. I think that probably is the default. They're probably already automatically ordered by that, so this is probably unnecessary. And then select only 3 of those. And return the context so that it can be rendered into the template. And all we do in the template basically is had to do a little bit of rewiring. The featured events was previously a member or property of the page, the home page, but now I've moved it into the template context. So it can be referenced just by name here, sort of. And if there are some featured events, if that query returns some results, we're going to render those in a section, featured events section. And we're going to loop over each one of those and display it in a card. So that's more or less it. I didn't actually write this during this session today, but it displays the event title, start date, in a formatted way, and the time zone and the teaser texts, so that there can be a brief description if that's available to give more information, but not display the full event description. So that's it in a nutshell. This feature is, this pull request is still marked as draft. Even in this review, I've noticed at least one change that I would like to make, and I'm going to get some feedback from the editor, the magazine editor, Mary Klein, to see what her thoughts are. One improvement that comes to mind is that we might want this number to be configurable up to 5, say. You can display up to 3 or 5. So that would be a feature or a property I could add on the homepage. And again, I probably only want to display live events just to make sure that the editor can draft future events and take advantage of the Wagtail publication flow. All right. Well, this has been another open source live code hangout. If you'd like to get involved with this project, you can stop by github.com/westernfriend or stay tuned on our stream here. And I'm also working with a couple of other open source projects, one of which is CiviWiki, and we are trying to line up a bunch of good first issues for new contributors to take as part of the Hacktoberfest initiative, where you can win or get some kind of rewards for contributing to open source projects. All right. Thanks a lot for your time, and I hope you're doing well.